There's a kind of solitude that only happens to certain people. There's a kind of solitude that only happens to certain people. Most folks never feel it. They move through their lives surrounded, busy, plugged into the noise, and they're fine with it. It never even occurs to them that something might be missing. But you're not most folks. And the fact that you clicked on this, the fact that you're still here listening, tells me you already know that about yourself, even if you've never said it out loud. I want to tell you something right at the start, and I want you to hold on to it through everything else I say. This month, June of 2026, was marked for you, not for everybody, for you specifically. And by the time I'm done, I think you're going to understand why the loneliness you've been carrying lately wasn't a sign you'd been forgotten. It was a sign the clock had started. You've always been a little set apart, even as a kid, probably. There was something in you that didn't quite fit the rooms you were put in. You'd be in the middle of a crowd and feel alone anyway. People liked you, maybe, but they didn't quite reach you. And you spent a lot of years thinking something was wrong with you because of it. Tonight, I want to tell you that nothing is wrong with you. You were separated. There's a difference. And by the time I'm done, I want you to feel that difference in your chest. My name is Walter. I've spent a long time watching how people change, not the way they say they want to change, but the way it actually happens. And over the years, I started noticing that a certain kind of person goes through life differently than everyone else. The seasons hit them harder. The isolation runs deeper. The losses seem almost arranged, like something is clearing the field around them on purpose. For the longest time, I couldn't explain it. Now I can. Those are the chosen ones. And if you felt that strange weight your whole life, the sense of being marked for something you can't name, then I'm talking to you specifically, not the crowd, you. So let me say the thing the title is pointing at plainly. Go to your room, close the door, because a massive turnaround is coming for you, and it begins surfacing right here in June of 2026, and it is not going to be built where everyone can see it. It's going to be built in private, in the quiet, behind a closed door, in a season of solitude you've probably been reading as punishment, when it was actually preparation the whole time. Let me show you what I mean, and let me do it honestly, because you've heard enough hype and you can smell it a mile off. There's a line in the book of Matthew that people quote without sitting in it. Jesus says, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Most folks treat that as a tip about privacy. Don't show off when you pray. And sure, that's part of it, but read it slower. He's describing something that can only happen behind a closed door. He's saying there's a version of you that only comes out when there's no audience. There's a conversation you can only have when nobody's watching. The public you and the private you are two different people, and only one of them is the real one. And the chosen ones are forever exhausted from keeping the public one running. The room isn't about hiding. The room is where the disguise comes off. And you, more than anyone, are tired of the disguise. I want you to think about Elijah, because his story is your story whether you've seen it that way or not. Here's a man marked by God, set apart, carrying a calling nobody around him understood, and he had just won, publicly, spectacularly, Fire came down from heaven in front of everyone. He defeated the prophets of Baal in the most dramatic way a person could ask for. By every measure we use, he had arrived. And what does he do right after the biggest victory of his life? He runs into the wilderness, sits down under a tree, and asks God to let him die. The man wanted to be done. You know that feeling, don't you? The strange emptiness that shows up right after the thing that was supposed to satisfy you. The chosen ones know it intimately. You can win and still want to disappear because the win was never the point, and something in you knows it. Here's what God does. He doesn't scold Elijah. He feeds him, lets him sleep, and then he leads him to a cave, a small, dark, enclosed space, a room, you could call it, and it's there. Not on the mountain where the fire fell, but in the cave alone, with the door of the world shut behind him, that God finally speaks to him. And not in a hurricane, not in an earthquake, not in a fire, in a low whisper, a thin, quiet sound. Sit, with the order of that. The whisper came after the withdrawal. God didn't whisper to his chosen man in the crowd or in the victory. He waited until Elijah was empty, exhausted, and alone, and then he spoke at a volume you can only hear in silence. That's not a detail. That's the entire mechanism by which the chosen ones are led. You will not hear the most important things over the noise. You were never going to. The instructions for your life are delivered at a frequency that only the quiet room can pick up. And that's why God keeps closing the door on people like you. Let me tell you about someone I knew. I'll keep his name out of it. He was one of these, set apart his whole life. Never quite fit, always carried a sense that he was meant for something he couldn't put words to. He'd built a life that looked like success from across the street. Married, business doing fine, the right car in the driveway. And then in about 8 months, it all came apart. The marriage ended. The partner he trusted cleaned him out, and he wound up in a small rented apartment with thin walls where he could hear the neighbors live their lives through the drywall. For weeks he couldn't stand being in there. He'd find any excuse to leave, drive around, sit in parking lots, anything to not be alone in those rooms. And then one night he just stopped. He came home, sat down on the floor, not the couch, the floor, and didn't turn anything on. No TV, no phone, no music. He sat in the quiet for what he said felt like hours. And he told me that for the first time in maybe 20 years, he heard himself. Not the noise himself, the real one underneath. And what he heard was that he had spent 2 decades building a life he never actually wanted, to impress people he didn't even like, running from the very thing that made him different, the separateness he'd been ashamed of his whole life. That apartment was the cave. The collapse was the door closing. And in that closed room, alone, with nothing left to manage, he finally met the man God had set apart all along. Within a couple of years, his whole life had turned, not back into what it was, into what it was supposed to have been from the start. People who knew him called it a comeback, like it happened fast. It didn't happen fast. It happened in that apartment on the floor in the dark, where nobody saw a thing. That's what I want you to understand about the season you're standing in right now, this June. The isolation you've been feeling, the way certain people have quietly drifted out of your life, the way the invitation stopped, the way you find yourself with more time alone than you've had in years. You've been reading it as rejection, as something going wrong with you. I'm telling you, it's the opposite. For a chosen one, subtraction is never an accident. The field is being cleared, the room is being prepared, and it always feels like loss while it's happening. You only see what it was making room for afterward. Think about a seed for a second. We use that image so much it's gone soft. So let me make it sharp for you. A seed doesn't grow in the open air. You can't lay it on the table and watch it sprout. It has to be buried, put in the dark, covered over where nothing can see it and nothing can reach it. From the seed's point of view, being buried would feel exactly like being thrown away, pushed down into the dirt, forgotten, abandoned in the cold and the dark. But that burial is the only condition under which it can become what it was made to be. The dark isn't punishing the seed. The dark is the one place the transformation is allowed to happen. And I think you've been buried this past stretch of your life, and you've mistaken it for being thrown out. You weren't discarded, you were planted. And here's the thing about planting, there's a season for it. And there's a season when what was planted finally breaks the surface. I believe for a lot of you, June of 2026 is that second one, the breaking through, the month the green finally shows above the soil. Here's something most people miss entirely. Before nearly every chosen man in Scripture did anything public, there was a hidden season, always. Moses spent 40 years on the backside of a desert tending sheep before the burning bush. 40 years of obscurity for a man raised in Pharaoh's palace, educated, positioned for greatness. David was anointed king as a boy and then sent right back to the fields, and after that spent years hiding in caves while a king hunted him. Paul, right after his conversion, didn't go start preaching. He disappeared into Arabia for 3 years. Even Jesus, 30 years of ordinary, unrecorded life before 3 years of ministry. You see the pattern, and the pattern is about you. The hidden season is not the delay before the calling. The hidden season is part of the calling. It's where the thing gets built that the public moment will later require. The chosen ones cannot skip it, and the ones who try, who claw into the spotlight before the private work is done, they break under the weight later because they were handed a platform their character couldn't hold yet. God loves you too much to let that happen to you. So He closes the door. Now let me be plain about this turnaround, because I don't trade in hype and you'd see through it if I did. A turnaround is just the name we give from the outside to a long hidden work finally surfacing. Nobody saw the months of the seed in the dark. They only saw the day the green broke through, and they called it sudden. It wasn't sudden. It was the visible part of something that had been happening invisibly the whole time. So when I tell you the turnaround begins surfacing in June of 2026, I'm not telling you the sky is going to crack open this month and drop a new life on you. I'm telling you that if you've been in the hidden season, buried, isolated, quieted, emptied out, there comes a point where the work done in the dark becomes ready to show. And I believe you've reached that point. The surfacing can come fast now. It can look, to everyone watching, like it happened overnight. But you'll know better. You'll know it was the harvest of every quiet, unwitnessed night you thought was wasted. But there's a condition, and this is the whole thing. The room only changes you if you let it. You can be isolated and squander it. You can have the door closed and spend the whole season pounding on it, trying to get back to the noise, refusing to turn around and face yourself. Plenty of chosen people do exactly that. They get the cave and spend it resenting the cave, and they wonder for years why the turnaround never comes. It never came because they never did the work the room was for. And I don't want that to be you. Not this month, not when you're this close. So let me tell you what that work actually looks like, because it's less mystical than people want it to be. It starts with letting the silence stay silent. You've probably never been alone with your own thoughts for any real stretch. The second it gets quiet, you reach for the phone. We've all trained ourselves never to sit in an unresolved feeling for more than a few seconds, and so you never hear the thing underneath. The room asks you to stop reaching, to let the quiet get done comfortable, and then stay in it past the discomfort. Because what's on the far side of that discomfort is the truth you've been outrunning your whole life. When my friend sat on that apartment floor, the breakthrough didn't come in the first minute. It came after the part where he wanted to get up and turn something on. It came on the far side of the squirming. The second part is honesty, the kind you can only manage when no one's watching. In public, you're always editing. You say the acceptable version, feel the acceptable feeling, maintain the story you've told everyone about who you are. The closed room is the one place you can set that story down. You can admit what you actually want, what you're actually afraid of, what you actually feel. It's brutal at first, but there's a freedom on the other side of it that nothing in the noisy world can give you. David wrote that God desires truth in the inward parts. The inward parts, not the outward performance, the hidden interior, the part of you that only exists behind the closed door. That's the part God is interested in, because for a chosen one, that's where the whole calling lives. The third part is listening, and I don't mean hearing voices. I mean the kind of guidance that only shows up in stillness, Elijah's whisper, the thin, quiet sound. There's a knowing that the noise drowns out completely, a sense of what you should do, who you've become, where you went wrong, what the next step is, and it only speaks at a volume the quiet room can hear. You'll start getting clarity in the silence you could never get in the crowd. Decisions that confused you for years will suddenly seem obvious. That's not coincidence. That's the chosen one finally getting still enough to receive what was always being offered. And I'd tell you to expect exactly that in the coming weeks. Not fireworks, but clarity. The fog you've been living in starting to lift. I won't pretend it's easy. The hidden season is lonely, and the loneliness is real, and I'm not going to talk you out of feeling it. I'll be honest with you, there were stretches in my own life where the isolation felt like punishment, where I was sure I'd been forgotten, where I prayed and heard nothing back, and assumed that meant nobody was listening. There was one winter in particular, years ago, where I'd pulled back from nearly everything and everyone, partly by choice and partly because life had pulled it back for me, and I spent most of it certain I was just disappearing, that I'd missed whatever I was supposed to be, and now I was running out the clock. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Everything that came after, every bit of whatever usefulness I've had to anyone, every word I've ever said, that landed on somebody and helped them, including the ones I'm saying to you right now. All of it was built in that winter. The winter I thought was the end was the foundation. I just couldn't see it from inside the dark, because you never can. The dark doesn't come with a label that says construction in progress. It just feels like dark. So if this is your winter, your cave, your buried season, I'm not going to tell you it doesn't hurt. I'm telling you it isn't wasted. And for someone set apart the way you are, it never has been. Now here's the part I want to leave you with, because it's the actual turning. Closing the door is something you do. It's not only something done to you. Yes, sometimes life slams it shut and you're just in there whether you like it or not. But there comes a moment in every real turnaround where you stop being a victim of the closed door and become the one who chose it. Where you say, I'm going in here on purpose. I'm going to stop running to the noise. I'm going to sit in this quiet deliberately, not because I have no other option, but because I finally understand what it's for. That's the shift. That's the turning. It's the moment the cave stops being a prison and becomes a sanctuary. Same room, same silence, same closed door, but now you walked in instead of getting thrown in. And that changes everything about what happens inside it. And I'm telling you, June of 2026 is the month to walk in on purpose. Don't wait for life to slam the door again. Close it yourself this time. The Gospels tell us Jesus would withdraw to lonely places to pray. Withdraw, he chose it. Over and over, in the middle of crowds that wanted him and demands that never stopped, he pulled away on purpose to be alone in the quiet. The most important life ever lived was sustained by a steady habit of going into the room and closing the door. If he needed it, then the idea that you, chosen, marked, set apart, could run on noise alone is just pride wearing a brave face. So this is my word to you for this month. Go to your room, close the door, not in despair, in expectation. Stop reading your isolation as a punishment and start treating it as your appointment. The turnaround that everyone will one day call sudden is already surfacing right now in June of 2026. In private, in the quiet you've been so tempted to run from. You were not forgotten. You were separated, and there's a reason. And the only thing being asked of you is that you stop pounding on the door to get out, turn around, and let the room do what it was always meant to do for someone like you. Before you go, I want to hear from you, and I mean it. Down in the comments, write the words June 2026, and then one honest sentence about what you're believing will turn around for you this month. Say it plainly, like you mean it. Because somebody else is going to scroll down, read your sentence, and realize for the first time that they're not the only one standing at this door in the dark. And for a chosen one who thought they were alone in it, your few words might be exactly what gives them the courage to stop running. Sit still and let June do what June was set apart to do.